Smithfield Board of Aldermen work session is now called to order. First item on the agenda is number 2, discussion of city administrator spending authority.
I'll just quick introduction. The board, actually Alderman Wilson, requested information on the expenditure authority of other communities in light of increased expenditures, raising costs, sorry. And so Stephen's got information to present. We are looking for direction from the board. We have no recommendation at this point. We'll just provide the information that we found through our research.
So if you recall, during the July 18th, 2023 Board of Aldermen work session, we had a directive from the board to research the City of Smithville's city administrator spending authority and whether a change is warranted. To do that, staff set out to do some research and look at the number of resolutions that we've approved over a 2-year period, exceeded $7,500, but also been below the $25,000 mark. And in conjunction with that research, we looked at comparable communities in our region and what those spending authorities looked like. So in your staff report, there's a number of charts and graphs that indicate where other communities are with spending authority. Statewide, we gathered responses from a Missouri GFOA listserv along with a city manager listserv. And you can see the midpoint in those charts are typically around $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. In these charts in your staff report, you can see that the city of Smithville is at $7,500. So we're one of the lowest in the responses that we gathered for the state as well in our local comparison. And when we looked at the resolutions over a 2-year period, found that the Board of Aldermen approved 6 resolutions in which the expenditures approved were between $7,500 and $25,000. And of those 46, 7 of those were emergency purchases. So that's outlined in the staff report. And as Cynthia mentioned, raising the spending authority is going to allow quicker action on those emergency purchases. It also counteracts issues we've had with inflation and be able to make routine purchases for departments on a daily basis. So all covered there in the staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions you have and I look forward to a recommendation from you.
Mayor, I'll start the conversation since I'm the one that requested that you look at this. And with what you have provided here, I would like to see us really consider raising it to at least the 10,000. When I look at your report here on that had 4 emergency purchases, that was between the 7,500 and the 10,000. So I think that would be my thought of moving forward just a little bit. I don't know that I want to double it.
I'd almost double it with the way prices and stuff are going. And that's just my feeling. I mean, we with, Excelsior, Platte City.
Yeah, and one thing to point out too, again, is these would be mostly, or in all occasions, budgeted items. The board's already acted on them at one point, and I see Bob's back there and Dave. Things aren't getting cheaper for you guys, right? So, yeah, those basins are getting harder and harder to fix and clean and expensive, right? So
I agree we need to raise it. I just, on the emergency side, if we have something that breaks, usually it's actually we're gonna go ahead and fix it, right? I mean, you usually go ahead and say, yeah, I'm gonna fix it, and then I'll send a letter to the board, right?
Correct. We let you know at the time that I've authorized an emergency repair or emergency purchase in order to be able to make that repair or make that purchase. And then we bring it to you all either in the next board meeting or the board meeting at which time we have all the final costs and final information on that.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia.
And how many of these municipalities have sewer treatment?
A lot of I would think probably a few of these are taken care of from city of Kansas City, Missouri. Are you looking at like the comparables chart?
Because I think most of the higher ones, Liberty just got sewer again.
Yep.
Kearney, Kansas City, Kansas City's processing sewer, of course, but Excelsior Springs, are they on their own? Do you know, Bob? Yeah, so like with Parkville, North Kansas City, though, they're plugged into Kansas City here. So they won't have those higher dollar costs unless road falls in or something.
I agree, 15,000 would probably be a satisfactory amount. And there's always very open communication when this is happening, when she has to do anything.
Anytime you forward an email from Chuck, we know it's not cheap.
Yeah, I agree with the board. 15,000 is what I was thinking. And, if we need to look at this again in a year, let's look at a higher amount, but my recommendation is 15,000.
I see heads nodding. Anybody?
I'm staying with the
Opposed?
10, but that's okay.
I'm
Okay,
comfortable with the 15,000 as well.
all right. Yeah, what you need?
Yeah, and I just wanted to note that city administrator purchasing authority is outlined in the code of ordinances, so it would require editing our code of ordinances on first and second reading as well. So we would prepare that for approval by the board before the spending authority would take place.
That's correct. It would take the form of an ordinance, so it will require 2 readings. So we'll bring that before the board in a future meeting,
Sounds good.
for future meetings, 2 of them.
Okay, moving down the table now to number 3. Alderman Hartman brought this one up. Discussion RFP for city tow services.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So I know Cynthia is going to give just a brief overview, but for those who are in the audience or watching online, oftentimes in work session, we have the ability to have a casual conversation among my peers, and we don't necessarily have that opportunity when it's put on the agenda for a vote. We really have 3 options. We vote it through, we table it, or we deny it. So I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about this openly this evening. Cynthia, do you want, I know you had talked a little bit about it. And then
I wasn't planning to present a report, but if Chief
Chief's
is
here.
okay, one or the other of us can kind of highlight the history here, but I do want to point out that this was, as Alderman Hartman noted, on a prior agenda, and there was a request to postpone to allow for review. Tonight, what we're looking for from the board is it's kind of a layered decision. First is a decision to exercise the contract extension, which is what the action was on the prior agenda, or to issue a new RFP. If the decision is to issue a new RFP, we would like to have some discussion and feedback from you all with regard to the parameters outlined in the RFP. The packet of information in the agenda included a history of where we've been. Chief, do you mind if I just quickly summarize this and you can fill in, or board can ask any questions? Prior to December of 2015, the police used a tow rotation that they tracked, just kind of internal to the squad room as the memo notes on a whiteboard. They just kind of followed it in that way. There was some issues with managing it in that way. They reviewed looking at issuing an RFP for the services in 2015. 2 bids were received and reviewed at that time. Then in December, the board did authorize or approved a contract with GT Tow for a contract with the option. It was a 1-year contract, Chief, with the option of, I'm sorry, it was exactly like we have now. It was a 3-year contract with the option to renew 2 additional years. So that contract was in effect until 2020, at which time we went out to bid again. At that point in time, we received 1 proposal, reviewed that proposal, brought forward a recommendation to the governing body that contract be approved for a 3-year period with 2 additional extensions. This is the recommendation that came to the board earlier this summer was the first extension outlined in that contract. Couple of notes, the 2015 contract included a cost per tow of $200, and that was reduced to $100 with the 2020 contract. I think, Jason, anything else to highlight of note? If you want to come up. Okay,
I've got a question, Cynthia. Oh, just go ahead, Jason.
Is there-
1 second before the board.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
So before we open up for board discussion, we do have 2 public comments, so we'll do those first. First one is Christine Bunch. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. Christine Bunch, 18608 Primrose Street. Thank you. Just reading from the Smithville website, applying for occupational license, the city of Smithville requires occupational licenses for all businesses located in the city limits or businesses performing work in city limits. All new businesses must submit a completed application prior to commencing operations. It has come to my knowledge, there's a lot of businesses in Smithville that are operating, not just tow services. But I'm going to focus on this because this is what the work session is about. On August 4th, 2023, I sent an email to Beth Stevens asking if there were any other tow contracts, and specifically asked for Brad's Towing if they had a business license. And Beth Stevens replied back, "Good morning, Christine. No, Brad's Towing does not have a business license with the city of Smithville." So to my knowledge, there's only one tow company that is licensed within the city of Smithville to do business. So thank you.
Next is Mr. Purdue. Again, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name's Kenny Purdue. I live at 7215 Little Platte Road. Brad's Tow business address is 19201 Switchgrass Drive up in Lake Meadows. I've been a Smithville resident for 27 years now. Per Chief Lockridge memo, well, first I do want to address the comment that was just made. On Friday, August 25th, we did submit a occupational and business license to the city. That was at 4:45, so that is in the city's hands right now. But per Chief Lockridge memo dated on August 15th, 2023, the towing industry and a tow contract are a challenge to implement and manage while still offering the highest level of service to the citizens and law enforcement. It is even harder to audit and manage transparency to both the city and citizens who are being towed for. Additionally, the tow industry in general has a reputation for inconsistency in service and pricing, as well as lewd business practices. Chief Lockridge's memo references the city of Kansas City, Missouri tow rotation almost a decade ago. The tow rotation has completely changed. Gone are the days of multiple tow companies jumping wrecks. Gone are the days of tow companies monitoring police scanners in order to make an extra buck. Gone are the days of inconsistent tow prices. Auto Return now manages the Kansas City, Missouri, Raytown, Kansas City, MoDOT, Platte County, Platte City, Platte Woods, Weston, Tracy, and other local police contracts. An officer can now see exactly where a tow truck is located en route to a traffic accident. The Platte County dispatcher, Smithville police officer, and the Smithville citizen know exactly where their vehicle is at any time. ETAs are now less than 11 minutes. Additionally, all tow companies on that rotation must charge the department and the citizens the exact same hook fee, tow fee, administrative fee, and impound fee. This is all done with complete oversight, transparency, and auditability from Auto Return. Brad's Tow is local to Smithville. Brad, Erica, and I reside in or just outside the Smithville area. We know that we could absolutely bid on this contract extremely aggressively to the point where we could displace the incumbent. That is not our intent. That would be easy and greedy and not serve our fellow citizens, police department, fire department, ambulance district, businesses, and our growing traffic challenges. Displacing another local tow company in order to win this contract has a negative economic impact. Not allowing other tow providers to serve the city, PD, and citizens has an even bigger economic impact, limiting entrepreneurism and other companies from investing in Smithville and hiring its citizens. With today's technology and the need for complete transparency, we are asking the city to move from a sole provider to Auto Return to allow the city and Auto Return to vet and audit local tow providers while maintaining the consistency of Platte County Sheriff's Department dispatchers to dispatch for the city of Smithville.
Thank you. That was a lot to take notes on. Hope you all got that. Alderman Russell.
Thank you, Mayor. Cynthia, I kind of want to back up here. When the contract was October of 2015 for 3 years plus 2 1-year extensions. I went back in 2018, 2019. I couldn't find it being brought to the Alderman to approve that extension on those 2 years. So that I guess the question was, or I guess the question is, first of all, how are they approved? And second of all, this time they were brought before the Alderman to approve, and then Alderman Hartman asked for it to go out for bid again. I also read the police Chief Lockridge's report or addition about the use of the current tow company and how with the lot in town, the impound lot, the benefits that the officers have, as well as talking to other officers on their take of it, because the officers there on the site, he or she sees what's going on, the interaction. And I heard nothing but praise for the current tow company on the ability with the flexibility to move from place to place if needed to. If there's something closer, one guy can handle it, another one can, and the paperwork that can drop off in the evening, just a bunch of stuff that seemed a plus to the people that are actually using it. So I also, talking around, I just actually stumbled on 2 senior citizens that were actually given a tow, and I'm not sure if the manager knows this, but actually given a tow, and he didn't charge them anything when their vehicle broke down. So I mean, this type of service to me, I was surprised that it was being brought up in the first place, to be moved, or the possibility of it. And I just question why it was brought up at the end at this time instead of the 2 years or 1 year being extended. If there's a problem in that 3 years, I think it should be addressed, and then not have an opportunity to continue with the extensions. But I haven't found any problems yet. That's what I was digging for, to see what problems are there to make this not be an issue on extension. And I haven't found any. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't any. I just haven't found any. And I did a lot of asking around about this. So it raises several questions in my mind, but I guess my take on it is that right now we need I think we need to move forward with the extension. For the conversation piece, I don't see an issue, a reason why not to. I don't see a reason why we're even having the discussion myself, but that's that. I'll talk with you afterwards, Cynthia, and see how it was approved in the past. But that brought up my asking last time for us to go to have everybody just go, all the contracts go on just 2 year, right? Everybody just go on 2 year. And I talked to you on the impact, some of the impact that would have to your staff, which seemed like a lot, right? And that might not be an idea, but if we're going to be fair, let's be fair. That's my take on it. Let's make sure that if we're going to, we shouldn't give extensions if we're not going to honor the extension. Let's just go with everybody a 3 year contract or whatever, so we don't have to worry about it.
Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
So as I opened up, I said there's 3 opportunities we have. We can either vote, we can either table, or we can deny. I think there's some semantics in what I said, but I clearly made a motion to table it. Yes, I did say I would be of the opinion I'd like to see it go out for bid, but I don't have that authority. We as a board have that authority. And so I just want to make sure that's clear that I tabled it so we could have a discussion about it to look further into it. Now, that's up to the rest of the board, as you've clearly stated. I don't believe in what we've seen there's anything wrong with the current contract, but we didn't have the opportunity to talk about that when it's for a vote, right? You have 3 options. You vote for it, you motion for table, or you deny it. So that's why we're here. We're here to discuss it. And if the board feels like that we move forward with that, then I'll be happy with that. But I would certainly like to just look at the option of going out for bid again. That's my simple request. But if the rest of the board feels like we need to put it back on the agenda, that's what the board needs to fill. They'll do it.
Mayor, I've got a question. So I'm reading through the contract. Term of agreement. The initial term of this agreement shall be for a period of 3 years, which we're talking about here, which ends October 31st, 2023, with the city having an option to renew this contract for 2 additional 1-year terms upon notice to the contractor within 90 days of the end of this current contract. We're beyond.
And that was one of the
notice,
reasons
so-
that we brought it prior to earlier this summer so that and implicit in us bringing it forward, and I apologize, it wasn't more clear, was staff's recommendation to continue the contract. And we had anticipated, because of our good experience, and chief, if I'm saying something incorrect, please let me know. Because of the experience that we had, we brought that forward so we could just continue that contract to exercise that renewal. Staff has had no issues or concerns with it. And so we had done that in that period, anticipating that it would be approved.
So what happens since we went beyond the 90 days?
That is a good question.
Yeah, I don't know that it could go out for bid for this year, but for future years it could, but I mean.
We could put
I
it
think
for,
that would need to come up, and we could work session that more if we need to. I think the decision tonight is just.
Yeah.
Do you guys want it on a future work session to talk about putting it out to bid and what that looks like, or do we want to just? Get it back on the next agenda to the resolution that's already drafted?
I like to see in the future that RFP be included, keeps the game fair for everyone, as well as maybe even open up the idea of multiple. If it's really panning out like it should, even co-bids, I guess, I don't think that's the right word, but get a hold of the other police departments, see what they're doing, see what the newest technology is doing, keeping the tow companies fair and accurate. And
I think at that point, it'd probably become more of an RFQ like we've done for engineering services or something.
There you
Get a
go.
list. It wouldn't be an RFP at that point, probably.
Okay,
I think since we went beyond the 90 days, I think it needs to go back on the agenda or whatever to go ahead and probably approve the contract for another year because of the fact that we went beyond the 90 days.
and I'll agree for this year.
Okay. So it'll be on the agenda next Tuesday.
and can I confirm then, given some of the conversation, do we want at some time in the next several months to have that additional conversation as to what things should look like? And if we do want to issue an RFP, to be able to put the current contract on notice in enough time?
I think it won't hurt because I mean, in this case, I understand where Mr. Hartman's coming from to begin with, that we only had the one bid. And I've always questioned, when you get one bid, did you get the best bid because you just got one bid? So I think that would be good in the future.
Anybody disagree with that?
I just, clarification on that was, if you say, if we only have one bidder, then we do what now? I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, how can you say you got the best bid and the lowest bid if you just got one bid?
Right, so what do you do if you have only one bid, is I guess my question.
Well, I remember a situation where going back, that happened with planning and zoning, and we had one bid and I asked for him to go back out again. I mean, we did the same thing with the dog park, but we did that and we only had one bid, and next time we really didn't get any, and whatever was requested to be built at that time didn't get built. So I just always questioned, if you got one bid, did you get the best bid?
You got the only bid. I know that we discussed about having a different animal service right here in town, and now we had no bids, right? So we
Twice,
went out
yeah.
for a while and had no.
For a
I
long
mean,
time.
Yeah, we opened it for 6 months or something, wasn't it, Cynthia? And we had no bids on it, so.
For the 6 months for the second time. The first time it was open for our typical roughly 3 weeks, but yeah.
I guess we cross that bridge if it happens again.
Well, and I will note also, there are times when we look at services, we may get fewer bids. We have had difficulty since 2020 in having responses on some bids just because people can't do the work, those sorts of things. And that's where, and I know Alderman Russell, you had alluded earlier to a conversation you and I had about everything being 2 years. there is a little bit of difficulty in that as well in dealing with that flexibility. If this is something that based on staff evaluation, we get a good bid, we feel like it would be competitive, even if it is only one bid, we may look at trying to negotiate a longer contract so we can eliminate that need to have to go out again and perhaps not have any, but we put in those things to be able to allow for those notification as well. So that flexibility is important to us in that too.
And I doubt the Corps is going to give us a 2-year contract on a lake.
We do,
That's our biggest contract.
we do have a number of contracts and ranging anywhere from a year-to-year contract, our fireworks contract. We've taken very different flexibility in that in order to be able to continue to provide this service. There are very few people who do the fireworks displays now. But that, our camp hosts, we have on the agenda for tonight. We go out kind of as frequently as if we have a good host that we think is going to be able to stay for a while. We continue to try to keep them on. We adjust. We try to work in a flexible manner with that. But as the mayor alluded, we have some contracts. We don't really go out for RFP on any of these, but we've got some contracts with the Corps of Engineers that are decades in length and literally do require an act of Congress for approval. So the longer we can negotiate those, or if we can try to make some changes on those, that there, in reality, I've looked at the number of RFPs that we do on an annual basis and the contracts that we have. There are a lot of just unique aspects of almost every contract we work on.
And Cynthia, I mean, on this contract with the extension, I think Marvin, I think he might have touched on it. Maybe we don't need extensions anymore, because in the past, it looks like the city, your staff has been able to say, okay, there's no reason not to go ahead with this extension. But what Marvin's saying, I think, is everything going out for bid every time. So maybe just, if we're going to do something, a 5-year contract and then just up for RFP, or 3-year contract and up for bid again. I don't know if that's what we're looking at or not. I guess it's maybe for another discussion, but it sounds like that might be what Marvin was hinting at. Maybe go with no extensions on any contract or on this contract.
I don't know if in the last 4 years, 3 years, I've seen an extension type situation. Hey, it's good for 3 years, then we're gonna do another. So. Put together. So maybe drawing a line in the sand and saying a contract is a contract, and then we put it back out. However many years we deem that this type of contract can be, that we should hold that contract for. So we're not doing something every 6 months or a year. Because now we're going to do it again in a year. So we could have done another 3-year up or a 4-year up.
Okay. You have everything you need?
I believe so.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Steven, are you ready? 9-month budget update.
We have 15 minutes. So.
You have 11 minutes.
Works good. Okay. All right. It's a pleasure tonight to present the 9-month budget update for fiscal year 2023. I'll take you through this briefly here. Some comments on our 2023 budget thus far. Through 9 months, we've had various budget amendments that have been approved by the board. All of them are listed here in the chart, and most of them pertain to capital improvement projects. When we've awarded the bid, we've had higher expenses than what was estimated, and it's resulted in a budget amendment for a variety of different funds. We'll start out our budget update with Hopefully our clicker working. But if it doesn't, we'll switch to the. Start with our general fund review. Our revenue projections for the general fund. We came into this year with a budget about 5.5 million for revenues. Our projections for revenues are 6.2 million, and we've received 91% of our budget thus far. So the revenues, they look very good through 9 months. They're bolstered through our property taxes, sales tax, and interest earnings. On our expenditure side, we're running pretty close to our budgeted amount of 6.4 with our projection, just a little bit under 6.4, and expended 4.4 year to date. You can see on our capital projects tracker, we have all 3 of our projects that are supported by the general fund are in progress. Our street maintenance program, our sidewalks getting replaced on Quincy Boulevard, and our street maintenance sidewalk program. Moving on to one of our first major revenues, ad valorem property tax. We've already exceeded the budget for this line item this year. We're coming up on 1.1 million pretty shortly here. Projecting to bring about that amount in. And of note, on the 3rd bullet on this slide, I've looked back at what our average annual increase has been in this revenues. And for the last 5 years, we've been at just over 6%. So this is, again, this comprises 20% of our general fund revenues. And we've seen this become a significant growth area in the last 5 years. And you can see that trend on our Q3 history. Our orange bars are Q3 actuals, and they've steadily risen over the last 3 years. Move on to our next major revenue here, our 1% city sales tax. This year's budget for sales tax was about 1.3 million. We've received about $1,050,000 so far through 9 months. It's 81% of our budget. And we're projecting to bring in 1.4. So we saw a pretty strong sales tax in these last 3 months. Certainly going to beat the budgeted amount. And as you'll see in the budget presentation, we believe this category is really going to continue to carry into 2024. We'll cover that and become a pretty significant source of our revenues. On our trend history, you can see we have another stair step with our orange actuals. We've seen that climb over the 3-year period and expect that to do so next year. And in our last major category, our city use tax, this was an area that was pretty concerning a couple of months ago as we started to see this lag. And in the last couple of months, this revenue area has really turned around. We've had some major online retailers do some remittance catch up in the months of July and August, and that has helped turn around our projections. Our budget for city use tax was $695,000 this year. We're projecting to bring in $715,000. So we'll see how we do in these last 3 months, but I'm expecting us to make this budget. We're almost at 75% of budget received through 9 months. So I'm pretty hopeful that we'll make that. And then on the orange columns on our Q3 history, you can see we're a little bit behind 2022 through 3 quarters. But when we take in our 10th month, when we add that in, the month that we just got in August, we'll see 2023 accelerate ahead of 2022 with that catch up. So we're on track to beat last year. It's hopeful we see that performance in the next 3 months. Couple other areas of impact. The graphs are a little small here, but we've got one graph representing our interest income revenue. And you can see that orange column for our Q3 actuals for 2023 is sky high. And that's due to our interest rate being up at the bank with our cash on hand. And then in the lower right-hand corner, our building permits, those continue to lag through 9 months of activity. We fully expect those to be under budget, but just with some slowing in house growth and permitting, that's fallen behind the other 2 years of performance. What that means for the general fund bottom line, is we came into this year with 3.4 million in fund balance. Expected to use almost 800,000 in fund balance and drop it down below 3 million because of our revenue performance being so good and our expenditures tracking on to the budget after we've made our amendments. We're only expecting to use about 160,000. So that's great. And again, been a little bit conservative on revenue assumptions, and we've gotten a little bit more aggressive on those. The longer I've been here, trying to pick those up and get a little more accuracy. So I expect us to close the gap between where we really finish in future years and where we budget. Our fund balance analysis here, we have our blue line, which is our policy reserve. This is what we need to maintain. And you can see we've started to drop that percentage starting in 2020. We're projecting to be about 50%. So we're starting to get a little bit closer to that blue line, but nothing concerning at this point. It's just as we continue on the next 2 to 3 years and we continue to use a little bit more fund balance as necessary, we'll have to watch that. Okay, go on to cover our special sales tax funds. Our capital improvement sales tax fund is performing well from a sales tax perspective. One note here, we had a budget of 1.1 million in this fund for 2023. We won't expect to bring that full budget in because we were banking on a MoDOT reimbursement for Streetscape Phase 3 to come into this fiscal year. We'll move that grant reimbursement to next year's budget when we do construction for the project. So when we see this fund at the end of the year, we'll collect far less than what we budgeted because of that revenue getting moved. But the same goes for the expenditures. You can see we're expecting to spend far less than our budget. And again, that's what Streetscape Phase 3 moving to next year. And we've got other projects that are in progress in this fund. It's helping fund our engineering for downtown Streetscape 3 and some road reconstruction costs out on Quincy Boulevard. Really same story here. Our orange bars were ahead on sales tax for this fund. Go to the transportation sales tax fund. You can see left, we have a photo of the crack ceiling that pavement management has been performing out on north end of town. Revenues on this fund, we're expecting to receive the total budget amount. Really just sales tax in this fund this year. There's no grant reimbursements involved. And then on the expenditure side, depending on how these 3 projects go below, we'll expect to fully expend that project. This fund's helping fund our road reconstruction on 4th Street and 4th Terrace. It carries a lot of our street maintenance program expense and then helps pay for road reconstruction expense on Quincy Boulevard. And then on the transportation sales tax fund, again, seeing year-over-year growth. Switch gears here and talk about the water and sewer fund. Wanted to put a picture of the work that was done out there to put the new safety fence in at the lift station. I think it's out at the Harbor subdivision. Revenues for this fund, we budgeted 9.3. We're projecting to bring in far less this year, primarily because of our COP issuance, another project that's moving to fiscal year 24. And so with that, we'll have those proceeds come in next year. Same thing with our expenditures. We'll bring in less this year with that project getting moved to 2024. And then you can see our capital and maintenance program for water and sewer, one of the biggest CIP programs we have as a city. We've already completed those first 5 projects on the top of the graph, and we're working on those 6 contracts that are highlighted yellow right now. Those are in progress. So we've got a lot of ongoing work, and especially on Quincy Boulevard, 4th Terrace, those water lines are in the ground and starting to get tie-ins done and get people hooked up with their new services. And then a little snapshot of our water and wastewater sales revenue. Both water and wastewater combine to be 90% of the revenue for the budget. So depending on how these perform, really drives how well the fund does as a whole. Both categories look good through 9 months. both categories projecting to bring in more revenue than what we had budgeted. It's a pretty warm summer. We've had a lot of 100-degree days. So when that happens, a lot of water gets used by residents. And when we look at our 3-year Q3 history, your eyes go right to those orange bars. You can see there's year-over-year growth in revenues for both water and wastewater. The bottom line for the water and sewer fund is this. We set out to use almost 4 million in fund balance, with some of those projects getting pushed back, especially the 144th Street project, which has a budget of almost $4 million. We're projecting to use a lot less in fund balance. We'll receive less revenue and receive less expenses with that project getting moved back. Okay. The sanitation fund, just a brief overview on this. Really what I'm looking for here through 9 months is to make sure our revenues and expenditures are pretty much the same as it's a pass-through fund, and they're pretty close. About a $3,400 difference between revenues and expenses, which isn't concerning at all. There could just be some lag when residents pay their bills with late fees, those sorts of things. So that looks really good through 9 months. Our third special sales tax, the Park and Stormwater Fund. It is the recipient of sales tax dollars this year. There's no grant reimbursements involved. Projecting to see that exceed its revenue for 2023. And then on the expenditure side, we'll expect that to be fully expended by the end of the year. We've got a couple projects completed this year, and when Quincy and 4th Street stormwater improvements wrap up here, we'll get those invoices paid and we'll have expended our budget this year, really working towards those stormwater improvements. Our vehicle and equipment replacement fund. You can see on the left, we have a couple new 2023 police interceptors, probably seen them driving around town. Chief's in the process of receiving more as they come in. Our revenues so far in the VERT this year, they look good. They've been the recipient of a budgeted transfer, as well as the city selling in-house vehicles back to enterprise. And so as we sell those vehicles, and we've been continuing to get pretty good values for those vehicles as the vehicle market has been strong. Demand is still high. And then just a note there, through July 31st, we are currently leasing 31 vehicles through enterprise fleet management. And then just a quick note on the ARPA fund. These funds we've received now, had a couple disbursements over the last couple of years that have basically been about 2.2 million. And we're really coming to the end of these funds. And we only have a couple 100,000 left in the fund to spend. And on the contract, we've got about 160,000 left for the raw water pump station. So we talking to our public works director, Chuck Souls, we expect those funds to be expended by the end of the year. But if a budget rollover is necessary, be sure to coordinate that. All right, wrap up the budget review. Here's some concluding remarks. Our general fund revenues are forecasting above the budget, strong performance in sales tax and interest earnings. We're seeing use tax bounce back after the remittance catch up, which is great. And then we've had a really warm summer, and with that has come increased water sales and consumption in the fund. On our expenditure side, we're always watching inflation as that continues to be present in our operational budgets, especially in repairs and maintenance. Treatment chemicals have gone up. We're continuing to stay on budget. I'll be coordinating the budget rollovers for fiscal year 24. We have a number of projects that might not be completed by October 31st, so we'll get that expense authority built into next year's budget. And then in our department, we're working on the migration from our version 9 software to version 10. And we're expecting to go live with that software in Q1 of next year. So that's going to give us a lot of efficiencies. Program runs faster, better customer service. There's a lot of things we're looking forward to and having that version. So I can stand for any questions regarding the 9-month budget update if you have any.
Any questions for Stephen? All right. On to your next one.
Gotta have a water break.
We are currently experiencing technical difficulties.
But you didn't get hacked.
Right. Well, tonight marks our formal review of the fiscal year 2024 proposed operating budget and 5-year CIP. Excited to get to this point with the help of all our department directors and everyone that's put in all the work to develop the budget thus far. And looking forward to getting your feedback and input on the budget tonight as we go through all the funds, projects, additions to the budget. I'll have some additional participants in tonight's budget presentation as well, so I'll turn it over to them when we get to that point. So, yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So when we start off in the development of the 2024 budget, we have a process that we follow. Process begins early in the year, around the first quarter of 2023. Reach out to department budget supervisors and department heads and receive their budget requests of what they need funded for the next year and what their priorities and goals are. We take those to our city administrator and assistant city administrator and meet in meetings and review those. We then go and hold the board retreat and we talk about those additions and you set the priorities and goals for us to adjust our budget to. And we review those throughout our budget work sessions tonight and next week as necessary. And then come October, in a few months here, you'll approve our operating budget and our capital budget for next year and approve our 5-year CIP. I want to start off tonight by looking kind of at the background of our organization and visit what I would call our financial profile, which just kind of sets the tone of how we do as an organization from a financial perspective. Start here with our bond rating, which is assessed based upon the criteria, economy, our debt structure, our condition, how we do financially, our demographics. When we went out to issue debt about 4 or 5 years ago, we received our rating back from Standard & Poor's. They gave us a AA- rating. And when you go to your credits rating scales, you'll see that that's a high grade rating. It's just one rating below prime. So to me, that indicates the city is in a financially a very good viable position. And when we go to issue debt for our 144th Street lift station, we'll receive another rating. And when we get that rating, I'll provide the board with an update to what that is and if there's a change from AA minus. But again, that's a high grade rating. We're performing well from a financial perspective. And looking at that, we do have outstanding debt that we pay each year. We have general obligation debt, which we issued back or received the funds back in August of 2018 to help pay for Main Street Trail and downtown streetscape, bring those improvements to our city. We also issued certificate of participation debt and received those funds in similar time frame, and that paid for our South Sewer Interceptor. So those are 20-year notes, and we'll have final payments on those in 2038. Just want to include that so you're aware. So moving on to the meat of the budget, I'll start with an overview of the general fund. And to kick off the general fund, we'll look at this revenue summary. This revenue summary shows you our actual 2022 revenues, and then what our budget is for this year and what we're projecting, and then what we're proposing for next year. And kind of as you look through the categories, just kind of touching on it briefly, you'll see we're going to have proposed increases in property taxes, sales and use tax, licenses, fees, permits, and then also other areas like charges of service and some transfers in. This total increase is just under 1%. You'll see one area we've built a little bit of a conservative assumption in on, and that's our interest earnings. So right now we're getting some really incredible returns on interest earnings, but we don't know what interest rates are going to do in the next year. We know we can go out to the bank and get a CD for next 12 months and get a pretty good rate, but we just don't know what those earnings are going to look like. So we did go a little bit conservative on that. If we were going to bring in what we were projecting this year, next year, we'd have a lot higher number. But again, it's a tough crystal ball to crack. So what that looks like by revenues by category, almost 40% of our revenues that we receive in the general fund is comprised of sales and use taxes. And then another 20%, 19% is property tax. So together, those make up 56% of our budget. Those two areas are extremely crucial to paying for all our police services, street services, development, administration. We really rely on those two areas. These next graphs show you a few different pieces of information. First, we'll look at the ad valorem property tax. The red dots show you the actual growth in property tax for the last 5 years. The yellow dot is what we're projecting to bring in this year. The green dot would be next year's budget, and then the blue are the out years based upon our performance. You could see we're continuing to accelerate up this curve. Next year, we'll expect to bring in another $50,000 on top of what we're projecting this year for ad valorem sales tax. We've built in a 4.5% growth assumption for property tax for next year. And just to provide some more backdrop on our
Hey,
tax
Stephen, can I jump
structure.
in real quick on the property
Sure.
tax piece? So those projections take into account some of the growth we anticipate in the community, both in the commercial and the residential side, but it also incorporates projections for collection of the 3% marijuana tax that went into effect.
That'd be on the sales tax.
I am,
That's okay. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, so I'll get to that here on the next slide on the sales tax. So this is our tax structure for our property tax, and pictured here in the graph is our 2022 tax levy rate. The city of Smithville comprises 6% of the total property tax bill. And this is based on a $300,000 market value home, or what's assessed at. The total property tax bill here would be $4,000. And so 6% of that, the numbers are pretty small, but you can see the city of Smithville. Here the taxpayer pays just over $200 to the city of Smithville. So it comprises a pretty small amount, but just there for information.
And and that amount is nearly in line with Clay County and because those combined is right about 4% or 0.41.
Here's our city sales tax chart, and what Cynthia's point she made here. We have that listed there on that bullet. Again, we have our red dots. You can see we had a lot of growth in our city sales tax from fiscal year 19 to 20. And then we've seen that continue to grow. This year's assumption for fiscal year 2024, we have just over a 9% growth assumption plugged in. We've talked about how we'll treat our 3% sales tax on rec marijuana. We're going to roll that into our city sales tax because we'll need to protect our dispensary in town and not share their sales tax data. So we'll report that as a part of this revenue line item. So we kind of have our base growth that we expect each year as we bring more people in and have more commerce. And then we'll get an extra bump when that sales tax for the rec marijuana comes into effective November 1st. Our collections will be effective November 1st.
Stephen, can you explain why, like to the audience, why you're combining that? Why you
Sure.
have to do that, please?
Yeah, so just as a quick backdrop, when we have access in the Department of Revenue sales tax data, and that data is treated as proprietary because accessing that allows you to back in what their sales volume would look like. And so those are considered, trade data, business data that needs to be protected. So because there's only one dispensary in town, we're going to go ahead and take the sales tax that is being derived off that business and put it into this line so that we can't extract it out of a report. It protects the data.
I'll elaborate just a little bit more on that. So there are certain staff members that have access to all of the data from the Department of Revenue, but we have to sign information that we will not share that data. By having access to that information, we do review the trends. We get those submissions on a monthly basis from the Department of Revenue. And so Stephen and I can look at that information and he can kind of make projections as to what things look like to help us come up with those sales tax projections. So does that help in that, Alderman Wilson?
I think so, because you're protecting.
A single business, because
protecting a
if
single
if
business
we
name.
had 3 dispensaries in town, we could look at what that sales tax brought in from a composite perspective. This is looking at an individual business and we don't call that out.
Yep. Okay, and one of our last major revenue sources is our city use tax. And looking at the graph here, again, the red dots are actuals. You can see this is a category we've had some of the most aggressive growth in. There's a couple of factors for that. When we've approved prior sales taxes, such as the Park and Storm and the Capitol, by ordinance, we've rolled those revenues into our city use tax. And then also we've had, the Wayfair case. We've had a lot of companies that have kind of had the lockdown clamp done on them, and they've remitted use tax for online retails and sales. So those two factors have combined to provide more revenue in this category. It's been really kind of a roller coaster watching these revenues come in. So I still like to be a little bit conservative on this category. And so with that in mind, we've plugged in a 2% growth assumption based upon our 2023 projections. As we get into the bulk of next year, I think we'll really start to see these revenues have been climbing 10, 15% easily each year, but we'll see if those trends continue to unfold or if it kind of steadies out. Okay. And then we'll switch gears here away from our revenues and talk about our key operating budget assumptions. So as we started to develop the general fund from an expenditure perspective, we needed to keep these assumptions in mind because these are some of the items that are just they're going to happen with the budget. And we need this to continue to be competitive, retain personnel. That starts with our CPI compensation adjustment, which is a 3% increase to all the pay bands, all staff, effective November 1st, 2023. In our long-range forecast that we have on our presentation, we are using a 3% annual increase assumption. So as we look out the next 5 years, we want to make sure that we are plugging that in and assuming that we're going to continue to have a 3% adjustment on salaries. Other adjustments for next year include a 15% increase on health insurance premiums. Healthcare costs continue to be on the rise. They aren't stopping like everything else. Fuel lately has been a little bit up and down. We're going with an assumption of $3.65 a gallon, which looks pretty good this week. City facility electricity, a 5% increase. Kind of as you work down the rest of them, I want to point out one in particular. Cynthia and I just had a RFQ interview for a new audit services agreement, and we're going to see an increased expense in that. I mean, it's costly to pay accountants to do what they do, and we're seeing an increase in that. There's also increases in property and liability and work comp. And with that, I'll turn it over to Cynthia to hone in on the retirement and compensation piece.
As the board will recall, we've had budget discussions at the retreat in May and through the summer, as recently as just a few weeks ago, we've had continuing discussions on employee compensation and retirement. Our personnel portion of our budget is a significant portion of our expenditures in all funds. And we have to pay our employees and provide the compensation and retirement packages to keep them providing the services to our residents. As you all are aware, we've had ongoing discussion based on discussion at the retreat of the board asking what composition of compensation and retirement employees favor most. So over the course of the summer, we have engaged employees in a lot of discussion with regard to compensation and retirement. We conducted a survey, and through the month of July, I meet quarterly with departments. And during our quarterly meeting in July, one of the topics of discussion was our compensation and retirement package and breakdown. Our employee survey resulted in information indicating that employees had a preference for enhancements to actually both retirement and compensation. And through kind of drilling down an additional discussion, a priority for the budget in this year by the bulk of employees is a focus on enhancing our retirement program. As we've discussed before, and a quick background is, so the city, all city employees participate in a loggers retirement program. That is our state pension program. That has three components: the amount of time an employee is in service, their final average salary, and a multiplier. That multiplier is what the city kind of buys into, and that's the contribution level at which the city participates. There are a number of levels provided by communities around the state. The plan that the city of Smithville currently participates in is at a 1.5% multiplier. So at retirement, it's 1.5% of a calculation of income based on final average salary and years of service. That 1.5% is the lowest rate that loggers offers. Many of the communities in the area participate at a 1.75% multiplier or even a 2% multiplier. We've reached out to loggers to determine costs to increase to a higher multiplier. And we talked about that a little bit in the work session in late July, early August. One other piece to take into consideration and think about is whether we are contributory or not. That means whether the employees participate by contributing a portion of their income to their retirement program or not. There are some communities in the area that are non-contributory. There are some that are contributory. Until January of this year, we participated where employees were 4% contributory at a 1.5% multiplier. So they provided 4% of their annual salary to their pension. In January, based on board direction and discussion last year, we reduced that that contribution amount from 4% to 2%. That effectively, we did not change the multiplier. We only changed the contribution amount. So that effectively provided an increase to employees' salaries or their take-home pay, but didn't change their retirement. So when we talk about shifting and making enhancements to retirement, we reviewed options at looking at increasing the multiplier, that 1.5%. In early summer, we requested revised information from loggers for the cost to make those increases to a higher level for a multiplier. The initial information we got included an estimate that was close to a number that we had plugged in and budgeted for merit increases. And it took into consideration a 4% multiplier. Very early in August, right before we were supposed to have the meeting that we didn't have a quorum for before this meeting, we got additional information and some revised information that would allow us to review a 2% contribution amount rather than the 4% contribution amount, effectively keeping employees at the same contribution level for an enhancement to the 1.75%. It was slightly higher than what we had initially received information for the 4% contribution level. So employees would be going back, losing part of their income, but increasing the retirement number. The number was not significant enough that it was concerning to, it's something that we believe as staff is something that we could look at into the future. It's about $115,000, which is more than the $85,000 we thought it was going to cost for a slightly different package. Based on the fact we can, for not a lot more, be able to provide a better benefit to employees where they're not contributing as much, but increasing their multiplier. Staff is recommending that at this point in time, as we adopt the budget, we do not make any changes to retirement, but we continue to monitor our expenditures, but also those revenues, as Stephen talked about. The use tax, we'll see how the marijuana sales tax comes in, those varying items. And after about January 1, we would recommend revisiting this discussion with an eye toward being able to make the enhancement to employee retirement to a higher multiplier without having to increase employee contribution. I hope that's as clear as mud. At this point, we don't want to take any action on it, but what I am going to do is I'm going to turn it back to Stephen, because what we looked at, the reason we made this decision is there is an impact to fund balance based on the assumptions that we've got at that $185 versus $115,000. I'm going to have Stephen review the information on fund balance impact. And these are small charts, I know. And Ron had a question.
Cynthia, is that retroactive, that if you go 1.5 to 2.0?
So it's not retroactive, doesn't work with the pension plan. It's basically what happens if it is retroactive. Retroactive is not the right word. If we make the change, all employees 1 month after the change is implemented if anyone who retires at that point in time retires at the higher multiplier. So yes, it's retroactive. That's not the term for it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thank you.
So it would have the benefit that 1 month after that change is made, it goes into effect.
Okay.
For all employees.
Thank you.
So right now, the employees are 2% contribution.
They're contributing 2%.
So if we just raise the multiplier,
It wouldn't have any,
they would recognize their entire 3% raise.
correct.
Okay.
That's one of the things. So that's a really good point and a good simplification, or not the right word, but when we originally provided the information at 3% merit increase and then making the change and going from back to a 4% contribution, that took 2% of that salary increase away. Now it's not a full dollar for dollar because contributions to the loggers program are tax exempt. So there's some of that, but it would affect pocketbooks now.
Okay, so Cynthia mentioned the impact to the general fund moving to those loggers program upgrades. So on the slide, I know the numbers are small, but you can see the yellow and the green. The yellow is the city's ending fund balance, and the green is reflective of the amount of funds that we are required to keep in those reserves, which is 25% of the operating budget. So we set up two scenarios, one with a 4% employee contribution and one that keeps the employee contribution at the 2%. Both are the L12 program upgrades. And you can see in both scenarios, fund balance starts to drop down close to that 25%. It gets there a little more aggressively on the 2% contribution because the employer is then picking up that piece that the employee would pay on the 4%. And so you can see in both charts, the one on the right, we hit the 25% mark before the end of 2026. And the one on the left, we basically arrive at that 25% at the end of 2026. So kind of to Cynthia's point, we're looking to see how revenues continue to perform. And if we see some really consistent performance over these next 4 months, and given that, we can then make that decision on the loggers program upgrade. All right, and now we'll cover our funded requests in the proposed general fund budget for 2024. I won't talk about all of these. We've covered some of these at the board retreat and started to work towards implementation of some of these. Some ones I will cover are highlighted in the green font. It includes $10,000 for new website enhancements and improvements, which was a board directive provided to us last month. And then also at the bottom, we have our downtown wayfinding guidelines from KMA Design. And so we're allocating $100,000 annually in our 5-year CIP to start working on the implementation of that wayfinding signage. And then furthermore, in another set of funded requests, the ones in the green font, we have our replacement of the tractor and boom mower, which we've talked about that, and that's actually on the agenda in tonight's regular session for approving the lease agreement for that. That tractor and mower has really reached the end of its life cycle. It's had performance issues. So we've recommended a 5-year lease to acquire that equipment. And then the Parks Department initially was going to opt, I think, for a 0-turn mower. They've switched that request up to replace a Kubota UTV, which has engine issues. It has a lot of operational issues. So just kind of switching the equipment replacement. And then speaking of additions, I'll have Myra Toothman come up and talk about a change order for 4th Street and 4th Terrace.
And all as Myra moves up, we have provided information to you all prior on this as well. So Myra's going to summarize the information.
Good evening. So I will do a recap. This addition is being proposed by staff per resident request to the 4th Street and 4th Terrace project. So you can see on the map on the left side, an area view. Those are the residents that do not have a mailbox in front of their house, like most people do. All of them have it in Spellman Drive on the east side. So all of residents have to come down the street, cross Spellman Drive, whether they are kids or adults. And it has been brought to our attention as a safety hazard. So staff has coordinated with the post office and our contractor and has have this proposed plan where we are going to be changing or installing stormwater infrastructure because currently there is a ditch here. The post office requested to have a pull in and pull out area so they can safely deliver the mail. We are also proposing installation of sidewalks so people from 4th Street and 4th Terrace can access this area safely. This is a little rendering of the project. This is the previous location of the mailboxes, and this is an idea of how it would look like. So we have received a bid from Minky Excavation, the current contractor that is working on 4th Street and 4th Terrace. And the bid, the quote was for 89,936 with 67 cents. We consider that this will address the safety issue. It's something that people have been doing for years, but we think that it would be good to change. There is a lot of work to do: stormwater, infrastructure, the pavement, the concrete, sidewalk, to be added. So this item will be in the agenda for the regular session for board approval. However, if you have any questions, I will be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Myra. How many mailboxes are we moving?
So currently there are 15 residents in
Okay,
the previous map that I showed. Mhm.
okay, thank you.
Myra, so some people may not know, but I think most everyone knows in the city of Smithville right now, we are working in that area.
Yes.
So if we were, I want to use the word cautiously, this isn't cheap, but it's going to be more economic now to do this than
Right.
coming back later on,
Yes.
correct, and doing it.
Yeah, there is some little trading cost. Before this area, there was gonna be riprap because we are doing stormwater in 4th Street and 4th Terrace. So the contractor is already working there. They will just be doing a different work. And of course, riprap versus concrete, there's a different price. But it's what the post office was willing to accept in order to change the location of the mailboxes. It's true, it's a cost benefit of, with the price, but there is a safety concern there that hasn't been addressed for years.
Yeah, they're running across the road all the time.
Yeah.
And people do not necessarily respect the speed limits, so.
Correct.
And I think if I could jump in also, and Myra, thank you for the information. As Myra noted, her first comments were, Chuck and Myra have spent a lot of time with the residents. This has been a disruptive project to that neighborhood, but it's making significant improvements to the neighborhood. And the neighbors have been tremendous to work with. And they provided feedback that this was a concern that they had. And so we were trying to address those concerns. One of the priorities that we've had as we've worked on infrastructure is to ensure that we're thinking about those changes so that we don't have to come back and make those improvements down the road. And as Alderman Hartman pointed out, it is, while it's costly, it's less expensive to do it now as standalone and less disruptive as well. We're already there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll come back into our general fund discussions and continue with a summary of our expenditures for the 2024 budget. Pictured here is an expenditure summary by category. It's our personnel services, commodities, capital outlay, contractual services, and transfers out. You can see our projected budget this year, projecting to spend almost 6.4 million in expenditures. Our increase from 2023 to our proposed 2024 budget is almost a 4% increase. And we would primarily see those increases come in the area of personnel services. I'll talk about what that is here in a second, as well as transfers out, which help support our vehicle and equipment replacement fund. The other categories are fairly stable with a little bit of change in capital outlay, mainly related to capital improvements. Expenditures by category are shown in this chart. City of Smithville, primarily an organization built with people. And so 70% of our expenditures go to fund our personnel services, which is our full-time salaries, our expenses for health insurance premiums, our FICA, our loggers employer contributions. We talked about that earlier, and our workers' comp expense. From there, commodities, 16%. Contractual service got cut off. I think that's about 7%. and then capital outlay and transfers out.
Stephen, if I can jump in also, you mentioned earlier, transfers out being about 197,000. And if you look at historical information, it's more and that's growing. Part of that is putting as Stephen said, that's transfer to the VERF. That's putting the funds aside to be able to pay for the leases for our fleet. That's been an investment that the board has directed we take a look at. That's a significant expense, but it also affects maintenance and the ability for our employees to be able to respond to do the work that they need to do. So that's been an important investment.
Next chart here just breaks our expenditures down by our departments. Really what I would call our big three, our streets, our parks and recreation, and our police animal control. Together, the gray, green, and blue comprise over 70% of our general fund budgets. And that's really where our core services are. Our cities, our public safety, our road maintenance, and our recreational amenities in our parks. So 70% of the budget provided in those departments, taking care of those services. The rest of the budget, our finance department, development and permitting, and senior center, elected officials, administration. I'll cover here our general funds proposed 5-year capital improvement plan. We don't rely on the general fund a very heavy amount to supplement our CIP, but in our 5-year CIP that's up for approval, I've talked a little bit about the wayfinding signage program, general fund's ability to support that, a $500,000 investment over 5 years. And then our other projects that will be funded through the general fund, really it's picking up expenses that we don't anticipate our special sales taxes to be able to provide on their own. So you recall we received grant reimbursement funding that's been secured for 3 pretty major projects, transportation related projects, and the general fund will pick up and support construction expenses related to sidewalks, our roundabout, and our Riverwalk Park and Trail.
I will note quickly then also as a reminder, mostly for the public, but the board as well, our CIP is a 5-year plan to help us, is a planning tool. What's included in the 2024 operating budget, or excuse me, the 2024 budget is only those projects in 2024. So we see some slip and change based on priorities, funding and timing of projects. Stephen has noted tonight that some projects are being moved based on the fact that, for instance, the streetscape project, we're working with, that's marked funding, and we're waiting on MoDOT okay to issue the bids, which we just got word that we can do that. But all of those take time and coordination. So those projects may move as well.
And then pictured here is our proposed general fund net change in fund balance. In the middle column, we talked about this in our 9-month budget update. We are projecting to use just over 160,000 in fund balance, which leaves us with 3.2 million at the end of this year. That would allow us to roll into next year with the 3.2 million, and we'd be projecting to use $350,000, $358,000 in general fund cash. This is our, as our proposed budget stands in this presentation, this is what our cash flow would look like over the next 5 years. You can see in 2024, we'd use that 350,000. And as we start to expend on some of those CIP projects, continue to meet other expenses down the road, our expenses, which are shown in the orange line at the top of the graph, outrun our revenues a little bit each year. You can see the orange line over the blue line. And so our fund balance decreases over time. And we'll layer that onto our required reserve. We need to hold, again, I mentioned earlier, we need to hold 25% of our operating budget in reserves. So as we get down now into 2026 and 27, that'll be our point in which we'll start to reach that. And again, we update this every month, so try to keep the board informed, especially through the budget updates as we're using that cash. What percentage level are we at? What do we need to do to not drop below 25% and have some cushion. So we always want to provide those updates going forward. That is the last slide on the general fund. Is there any questions from the board about that fund specifically before we move forward, or any input or feedback?
I don't know if this is a place to ask it or say it. I know when we were elected and we went out and visited the departments, we talked about things that were in the process of being done. Hopefully there was going to be a restroom up at the splash pad, and that has not happened yet. I didn't bring it forwards before tonight because I thought, okay, you know, they were saying maybe Memorial Day, that hasn't happened. I would like to request that we look at going ahead and getting a restroom up there. I know that developer, I think, is supposed to do a parking lot. I don't know where the parking lot would be in relationship to the restroom. But I think that needs to be included in this next year's budget
Yeah.
somehow.
We were gonna address that too in the Parks and Rec Committee update.
That's-
Matt got bids for the shelter and we finally got land valuation back on the parking lot to be able to do that gift tax exchange. And Matt and I have been reaching out to contractors on bathroom and shelter both. He does have a bid on it. We do have the Parks Board agreed it needs to get done because, you know,
I just didn't know whether to wait.
And that'd be in the Parks and
come in or
Recreation.
just-
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have, we anticipate bringing that forward based on that discussion. And yes.
yeah. And one thing too, when Steven's looking at the 5-year out projections, it was looking very similar 5 years ago on where we were going below that line, and we're still at what, 57% fund balance, so we're well above our reserve. So,
We just use it down a little bit every year but the goal is to monitor that, make sure we don't.
I think our current fund balance is over 100% of our 2018 budget total, so we're doing pretty good.
And I think it's good to understand too, you know, we were at 40%. So part of what's being spent now is like what you could almost say is excess reserve.
Correct.
I mean, we're getting down,
Correct.
but that's, I
And
think, a
trying to
point
do-
to make as well.
And part of that is that expenditure of things that focus on infrastructure, both our projects and our employees and human infrastructure. And that, those projections, to clarify then as well, those future projections, we hope are very conservative. We'd like to continue to see that interest income continue to go up. We'll see some sales tax, we believe, and see those changes in property taxes. So all of those are areas we hope to see that growth, but we want to be conservative in the way that we approach the future.
Yeah.
Hey, Stephen, real quick, and it was earlier on, you talked about, the mayor mentioned that the changes since 2018, the AA minus rating was 2019, and it's been that long time. How often is that rating?
It's only when we go out for
Right.
bond ratings, which we don't go out for debt often. And as a city of the 4th class, getting anything better than an A minus is probably not gonna happen.
Okay.
Those are usually, the higher ratings are usually reserved for counties
County, large,
and large cities.
Overland Park, Lee Summit, I worked for Overland Park decades ago, and they were consistently what's called a double AAA city. That was Standard and Poor's and Moody's, both AAA and ratings.
They're
That
also
is
borrowing hundreds of
basically,
millions of
They
dollars.
borrow significant amounts to invest in their infrastructure. They also have significant tax bases, both property and sales tax. So it's really a function of where we are there. And as the mayor said, we go out, we are rated only when we anticipate going out for any type of a debt issuance. And we've not issued any debt since 2018.
Thank you.
Excuse me, wait,
Yeah, we've
19.
we've tried to spend cash as much as possible on things and not pay debt service, and we've been fairly successful doing so. We did a $3 million project at the lake for cash that we were supposed to issue debt for.
Right, we'll move on and talk about our combined water and wastewater fund. And we'll start this portion of the presentation off with a review of the 5-year CIP. We've updated this CIP in a couple of different fronts. For one, we've pushed the 144th Street lift station and West Bypass, West Interceptor to 2024. As you know, that project involves the issuance of COP funds, And we've talked a little bit about the bid award timeline being pushed back to later in the year, almost to the closer to the end of the year. And so we've reallocated that. In addition, as you work down, you'll see we have our Stonebridge lift station. We've added that project to the CIP. And we originally were slated to do some improvements out at the water treatment plant. We've pushed those back to 2024 as well. We're underway with the engineering. HDR is leading the efforts on the engineering for that project, but construction and expenses related to construction are expected to occur in 2024. So those are some of the changes to the CIP since we last visited it earlier in the budget process for next year's budget for the water and sewer fund. It's an $8.3 million project budget for next year.
One of
And
the
then-
things to mention on that, because I'm sure someone will ask, the project was budgeted, but we didn't go out for debt. If we go out for debt too early on a project and we sit on the cash, we get into an arbitrage situation and that's illegal. We can't gain a bunch of interest on money that's
Yeah.
borrowed as a municipality. Yeah, we have to complete it within a certain timeline of the debt issuance. And you saw our interest revenues. We had an extra
Yeah, well,
$8
a
million
lot extra
sitting in
money.
the bank. It would have been a very large number.
And this next graph shows us the 2025 through 28 CIP. To highlight this portion of the CIP, we have some major expansion projects that are coming down the road in the next 3 years. Was the wastewater treatment plant expansion and the water plant expansion. Also included in the water and sewer fund, we have specific revenues that are reserved for capacity-based projects. We have this water impact project, the Maple Lane and River Crossing. We have water impact fees that we collect that are specifically reserved for capital projects that build capacity and maintain capacity in the city. So we're reserving those revenues for this project in 2024. It'll fund half of the project, while the other half is covered by our operating revenues, our water and wastewater sales. And then we also have wastewater impact fees. Those revenues are specifically reserved for capacity projects. And in this case, we'll use those revenues to help fund the expansion of the wastewater plant, which is going to provide more capacity to the city for wastewater processing. Yep, I think I hit the wrong button there. Okay. We also have operating budget recommendations for our water and sewer fund. These are some recommended additions to the budget that include a wastewater treatment plant operator, a sewer jetter machine, which I have a slide on that, and then some lab equipment and facility lighting and HVAC systems. So all of those improvements would occur in next year's budget. And one of those big pieces, we saw the sewer jetter was a $200,000 investment. So it's a pretty significant cost. But the current sewer jetter is starting to show its age and it has numerous work applications. So you can see in the right-hand picture, Dave's out there working with the sewer jetter. They're doing manhole clean out. And then this summer, it was also used for the SBR clean out at the wastewater treatment plant. So it's a vital piece of equipment that is in need of replacement and it has multiple applications. And then we look at our water and sewer long-term cash flow. We've looked at this graph before in our budget process. This is a snapshot from the utility rate study. And the two things to note here is we have a fund balance, which is the blue bars, and our target reserves, which is the horizontal dark line going through the graph. Really, we get into a pinch point in a few years, 2025, and really in 2027, where our fund balance is expected to dip down. It's not so much a concern today as it would be in a few years because we do have some delays in projects. And so if we do have project delays, those expenses are going to occur later on. But really what this graph drives home is we're going to start spending that money. I know in our 9-month budget update, we weren't expending as much as what we budgeted, but we have pretty big projects going on right now at 4th Street in Quincy. And when we get our invoices in and start paying on those, we're going to start using that money. So we'll watch that in the next couple of years and monitor this fund balance. The other side of this is in order to fund these additions, in order to fund the CIP appropriately, it does require rate adjustments. So back in July, I believe it was July 18th, we covered in detail our proposed water and wastewater rate increases. It does include 15% increases to our base monthly charge for water and the volume charge with that, and a 15% wastewater base charge increase and volume charge. Your staff report also includes some of the information we covered in that work session, such as the jurisdictional comparison and our impact on the average monthly bill. Any questions on that water and sewer fund before we move forward with our special sales taxes?
I'm gonna click it.
All right. So we'll start to get into our special sales taxes. We'll start with the transportation sales tax fund. And this year we had our microsurfacing. If you've driven around the city, you've probably maybe even driven on those new roads. And then also coming up in the CIP, we have the engineering for the Bridge Street roundabout, which is receives mark reimbursement. And there's some conceptual design what that would look like. This is the proposed 5-year CIP for the transportation sales tax. One of the big annual expenses it provides funding for is our asphalt overlay program. And then next year, it will also house expenses for commercial street sidewalks. So we have $750,000 there allocated for that. In green, we have a secured grant reimbursement for this project, a marked grant reimbursement of $500,000 to offset expense. That's right below the construction. And then in 2026, move to the middle column, we have 1.4 million allocated for the First and Bridge Street roundabout. Just saw that design on the previous page. And an offsetting $900,000 secured grant from Mark to help pay for those expenses. So the annual overlay is kind of a base program in this fund every year. And those two projects are really the big ones this fund will provide money for in the next 5 years. And then it's kind of a crazy looking graph, but here's the 5-year cash flow. Next year, it gets extremely low. So I'll be sure to be monitoring that. It gets down below 50,000 as we spend as much as we can to get the projects done. But overall, we don't leave a ton of money in this fund in the next 5 years. In some years, we'll have a few $100,000 left. In others, it'll be lower than that. But trying to use all the available funds year over year. Okay, we'll move on to the capital improvement sales tax fund. And with this fund, this graph is showing us next year's budget only for 2024. And so for next year, I talked about downtown streetscape 3 in the budget update. We're going to, with the MoDOT delays, we'll move that to next year. And then we'll also start engineering on those 3 projects that have the MARC funding. So Riverwalk and Trail, Second Creek sidewalks, and First and Bridge Street roundabout. A lot of the engineering expenses will be paid out of there in this fund. And then when we do our 5-year lookout, this fund is going to pay for a bulk of our capital improvements that I talked about there, the Second Creek sidewalks with an offsetting grant reimbursement. A lot of our Riverwalk and Trail will plan to pay out of this fund with offsetting reimbursement. And then as we get out 4 or 5 years from now, we've put in some projects that we hope to do. We don't have grant funding for 180th and Eagle, but we'll continue to monitor that. And of course, the plan is a plan. It is certainly subject to change from the board as we, Cynthia talked about it. We're just approving next year's budget for these projects that are shown in 2024, and it's a plan going forward from there. So the cash flow for this fund kind of looks similar to the transportation sales tax. Next year, it gets down pretty low. We don't have a lot of money in the fund, and then we beef it up as we go through the next 4 years. Last special sales tax is our park and stormwater sales tax. Alderman Wilson, you talked about the bathrooms. This could potentially be a funding source for that we leverage our park portion of the sales tax here. And this chart shows us our first 2 years of the plan. It shows in next year in 2024 that we'd look to do the OK Railroad Phase 1. We have not secured that funding as of yet, but we're looking to secure it. We also have $450,000 for the Emerald Ridge Neighborhood Park and some signage for the park. And then we've also had our stormwater assessment recently completed, and so we started to integrate stormwater improvements into this plan as well. So next year we address Stonebridge stormwater improvements with engineering and construction for that area. The year after that, we look at Dundee Road area. This fund also helps supplement our Riverwalk Park and Trail project. That's a pretty expensive, that whole Riverwalk is, coming up on $2 million, and one fund can't support it all by itself. So we rely on this fund to help pay for it. And then in the last 3 years, we continue to address stormwater needs around the community, Forest Oaks, Cedar Lakes, Maple Lane. And then we also start to get in and address one of our biggest projects in the Park and Rec Master Plan, the first phase of the Smiths Fork Park Complex. And the Park and Storm sales tax, the cash flow here looks quite a bit different than the other funds. A year or two ago, we established a strategy that we were going to build up fund balance so that we'd have enough money to pay cash for Smiths Fork Park Phase 1. And you can see that extreme drop off. The fund balance is the yellow bars. You can see the extreme drop off from 27 to 28 as we expend all that money and get that project done. So we're building up those funds, and we're on track to getting there and being able to afford that project. We're doing a good job on that. Any questions on the special sales tax funds from the board?
Doesn't look like it.
No,
Go ahead.
give me a little bit more detail on the bathroom for the splash pad.
We'll incorporate our estimates on that in the budget for the next.
Okay.
Matt, do we have a cost estimate on that?
We're about 70. So we talk about the parks.
So we have that available in the Parks and Recreation. What it does is that fund balance that we've got in there. So based on that discussion and the fact that we've known we've needed to do that, it is our intent, so long as the board concurs, to include that in the budget as we bring forward.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've been out to Smiths Fork to see what Matt and the guys did with the shelters out there, but we're trying to make them consistent with what's at Helvey. And so it'd be a similar design to what's at Helvey with a bathroom attached to it. So some picnic tables underneath, open concept. So keep the wasps and bugs from getting in there. Matt's been out there a couple of times already to get rid of those in the shade structure we have already. So
I appreciate it. I think the citizens will too, so thank you.
the developer has been less than responsive to me, Matt, Jack.
When we
lawyers.
recognize we're effectively 2 years now into the splash pad, a year with the park, and
Yep.
it's time.
Right, we'll visit a couple more funds here as we start to wrap up. This is our vehicle and equipment replacement fund, which provides fundings for new vehicles around the city. You can see the police interceptors, new inspector vehicle there, and the Parks and Rec boom truck, which is heavily relied on every day. So talked about in the 9-month budget update that we're currently leasing 31 vehicles with Enterprise. This may be, we may have 4 of the interceptors, I'm not sure, but we know 3 of the 8 have been received by the city thus far. One thing that our office and others are doing is we're monitoring the reduction in the maintenance costs associated with patrol vehicle repairs once this fleet change out has occurred. So once we get closer to replacing all 8 of the police interceptors, I expect to see some expense reduction with that, because we, as you know, the 2015, 2016s had a lot of repairs that were needed to be done frequently. And so getting those out of the fleet and getting the new ones in it's going to reduce those expenses. So that's something that I'm tracking and would like to report on. And then the budget itself, the general fund and the utilities fund will transfer money into the VERF over the next 5 years. That provides funding for our vehicle lease expenses. We have about a $200,000 transfer next year from the general fund. And then the utility fund will provide $50,000 for the utility vehicles in the VERF. And here's the cash flow projections for the VERF. It's pretty stable. We set this up for the 5 years so that we can retain some fund balance in the fund. And, as time goes on, we can transfer more into the fund if we need more vehicles or as budget additions allow. But we have a pretty steady fund balance projected for the next 5 years. Okay, and our sanitation fund, this is a pass-through fund. We simply collect the revenues from the customers and pay the expense. So immediately you'll see on the fund balance chart, we don't keep a lot of money in this fund year over year. There's really no need to. If we could keep $30,000 or $40,000 in there, that would be just fine. We have about 70,000 projecting at the end of the year. Some background on this fund. We service over 3,200 trash accounts in the city, and we have over 500 of those, we have 3,200 regular. And in addition to that, 500 more have signed up for the senior rates. Senior trash accounts make up almost 14% of the accounts at this time. So, and for our monthly customer trash charge with GFL, we're going to increase that. They're increasing their rates by 5%. Our increase is 4.8 from $19.29 to $20.16. Our senior trash charge, which I think is $16.40, is going to stay the same for next year. There's going to be no change to that rate. Okay. All right. So we'll look at some concluding summaries for the budget. These slides really kind of wrap up the whole CIP and all the funds in one chart. You can see our special sales taxes, CIP, our water and sewer fund, and our general fund. Next year, our CIP will be $12.8 million. And over the 5-year period, it is nearly a $50 million CIP. So it continues to grow each year as we do the improvements in the city. Costs do go up, but it's a substantial CIP for the next 5 years. And in this table is our all funds summary for 2024. We'll go into 2024 with proposing to budget for 16 segregated separate funds that total just over 24.8 million in revenue and 29.6 in expenditures. You'll see we'll project to start the year with 13.3 in fund balance for all of these funds combined, and we'll take that down to 8.5. Throughout the budget presentation, we've talked about the CIP, 144th Street lift station, streetscape, commercial sidewalks. Using our money to do all of those projects is going to take down fund balance on the aggregate across all of these funds. So that's really the main driver for using the money across all the funds as we start 2024 and end 2024. All right. And then next week, if the board wishes, we'll look at a second discussion for our operating budget and 5-year CIP. And then as we move into October, we'll have a public hearing for sewer rates as required by state of Missouri. And then on the 17th, we'll look to adopt our rates and schedule of fees and our operating capital budget.
I would like to thank Stephen and all staff for the hard work I know it takes in putting these budgets together. Great presentation, and I just want to say thank you to everybody for your hard work.
Thank you.
Yep.
You stole my thunder a little bit. I was going to thank Steve. No, absolutely. I appreciate your all's acknowledgement of Stephen's significant amount of effort in putting this together. I don't know if there's any other mayor discussion from the
No,
board
I
on
was gonna ask if
this.
anybody else see a need for a second discussion next week. I think you've captured everything we need. We could do a little longer one next
We've
time.
all been captured for a while.
But yeah, if we're gonna collect tax dollars, we need to spend them, and we need to spend them on fixing roads and infrastructure that they're collected for, not sit on them for years like the previous boards had done. I think the first CIP Cynthia and I inherited was $300,000, and that's about what the board spent every year, regardless of fund balance. So spend it on what it's collected for. Doesn't need to sit in the bank.
And given that, we will take the work session item off for next week of additional discussion on the budget. And then we'll follow the rest of the agenda, or excuse me, the timeline that Stephen outlined, and bring those items forward in future.
Saw Bob nodding
Budget
his head back
meetings.
there. I know he was band-aiding a lot of stuff prior to us, and I think he appreciates the new lines that they don't have to dig up all the time. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn before you go to the next meeting. Thank you. To have a second.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll take 5-10 minutes or so. We'll start about 7:50.
I get to throw all the stuff together.